Well, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to give an update on this situation regarding Panama, the United States trying to potentially take back the Panama Canal. Maybe there'll be some type of agreement. I'm going to go over every possible option here. When it comes to the zone, we have Panama like tattletaling on the United States. You can see it says Panama not playing around. They just told on Donald Trump and his reckless rhetoric straight to the United Nations, so they're angry and they run to the UN about it, filing a complaint over Donald Trump's threats to take back the canal in a clear message to Trump and the world. And their ambassador is talking about threatening force against another country, talking about how it violates different things. All right, so let me go over this situation and really what's going to be happening. Will there be a blockade by the U.S. Navy? And what will Trump get out of this? And is there a clear point to doing it? The answer is absolutely yes, there is. Let's first go back. We remember in the 1880s when the French tried building the Panama Canal, they couldn't do it. They had no investment. It cost too much money. The United States takes over the project. They begin construction in 1904 and they finish it around 1914. It costs $10 billion, inflation adjusted. So $10 billion into the project, the United States totally controls the Panama Canal zone. That control lasts until 1977. The United States signs an agreement with Panama in 77 and says the United States and Panama will have joint economic rule over the canal zone, which honestly, maybe that's what Trump's trying to get, or maybe he's trying to force the Chinese influence out. But in 77, the United States and Panama agree to joint rule. Remember, the United States, when you look at the canal, it's about 5% total of global trade. It connects both the major oceans surrounding the United States, and it's very important. And it's about 70% of the ships that pass through the canal are American ships. And Panama needs it, or they could it certainly helps their economy in terms of the tolls. You pay two tolls with the canal, I believe. When the ship enters the canal, it's one toll, and then when the ship leaves the canal, it's another toll. So the United States and Panama had joint ownership from 1977 to 99, and then in that agreement in 77 was that I believe in the year 99 or 2000, the United States would give up full control of the Panama Canal that we built for $10 billion to Panama. So that happens in 2000. Panama controls it. Panama in 2015, 2016, they built an extension because it's a huge part of their economy of the canal. It cost about $7 billion extension of it to make it bigger. And in 2017, China and Panama sign a diplomatic relationship. Panama's in bed with China. China's buying up all the ports surrounding the canal. And now apparently Panama's just obsessed with China. They've got an agreement. They don't even recognize Taiwan. And so now Trump comes out, he wins the election, and he's talking about Greenland, the situation there. He's talking about Canada possibly taking over some of the territories in Canada. And then he goes to Panama and he says, this is just a terrible situation we have here, especially with the China influence. Even without the Chinese influence, it's a bad deal for the U.S. based off the fact that we use the canal a ton. We have to pay all these tolls. It's an issue considering we built the thing. And if there is Chinese influence, what really happens here? So obviously Panama is going to come out and they're going to posture. And they're going to say the United States is big, bad, and evil. They shouldn't be doing this. This is crazy. They're going to frame it a certain way. I've already seen many Europeans come out and say, Trump wants to annex Panama. That's not it at all. We want the zone. It's the zone that we controlled for like 70 years. That's what we want. And a lot of that's because some of that is because of Chinese influence. Some of that is also because of the tolls that the U.S. ships have to pay. But when it comes to what happens, well, Panama right now is playing hardball. That's what all these smaller countries do at the start. If they continue to do that, Trump could escalate and potentially put in a blockade, a naval blockade to the Panama Canal. And if Trump did that, there would probably be negotiations immediately, I would imagine. And at that point, we can only speculate on what would happen with the canal in terms of if Trump wants full ownership of the canal. Would there be some type of invasion? Actually, when it comes to a naval blockade, that's not an invasion. It's a military exercise. Strategic military exercise is what they would label that. They would not label that a blockade an invasion. They might invade the zone, though, the canal zone. So if they end up doing that, there would probably be negotiations that would have to be done. And then my question is, does Trump want the entire canal back in U.S. hands, or does he want a joint agreement, or does he want something from the people of Panama and their government that says they're going to kick China out and the Chinese influence is going to be gone? The problem with that is obviously China will oppose it, and that could create some type of proxy war with China. But I'm not sure, just a canal would make that much of a difference. And especially the United States does have previous rights to the land in terms of we did build the thing and we owned the zone for 70, 80 years, and then it was joint ownership until 2000. We owned the zone practically for 100 years, for like a century. So the United States does have previous ties. The United States did build the original canal. Panama would say, well, we built the extension. It cost $6 or $7 billion. China's, investment is all over that as well, of course. So my guess is there's either going to be a negotiation before a blockade happens. There might be some type of, I don't know if Trump can tariff Panama. I'm not sure in terms of the trade there. You could always go with a tariff. Obviously, that's what Trump's been doing a lot recently in terms of threatening tariffs with Canada and then saying he'll take the tariffs off if Canada becomes the 51st state. With Panama, it might not be so easy. I think Panama's clearly different than Greenland, just in terms of I think Greenland would be easier to get than Panama. But if the blockade does happen, obviously that would be not a great optics look for the United States. The blockade would, it would be an exercise. That's what it's titled, the military exercise. It's not an invasion. So it's not a hostile situation. And we are trying to help the people of Panama and the people of Greenland out. It's not gaslighting. It's legit because, if there's Chinese control, the problem is if Panama really gets in bed with China, it's going to be an even bigger problem for Panama. So they need to not do that. So we're trying to help them out. Yes, they're going to be pissed off because they lose a bunch of money because their economy relies on the tolls. Maybe a joint ownership is in the cards for Panama and the United States when it comes to the canal, or maybe Trump really does want a full takeover of the canal. I just don't know right now what he actually wants. It's the same thing with Canada. I don't know if he is being serious about that. With this, I think he's being serious about the idea that the United States is getting ripped off because you lay it out and you understand that the United States, certainly if there is significant Chinese influence, which there is because this is what the Chinese do, China in the early 2000s laid out the blueprint for how they are able to influence other countries. It's like a soft influence or a soft invasion where they buy up land. They buy up farmland in the United States. That's got to be eliminated. That should be next up on Trump's list. Trump needs to come out tomorrow and say that's done. Where it's a forced sell, or it's not even going to be a forced. Well, you don't be hostile about it, but you just take their land from them. Chinese, the government of China, they shouldn't be able to buy land. That's ridiculous in the United States. That's number one. But number two, when you have a situation like this where China is buying up all these ports surrounding Panama, this is very clearly a strategy that they implemented in the early 2000s to gain more influence across the globe. This is how they do it. And so Trump realizes it, he understands it, and Panama's going to run to the UN and cry like babies because that's what these smaller countries do. I'm not trying to make fun of them. I agree it's tough if you're Panama. But it's a situation where, and a lot of these, like someone like Panama is probably trying to hold on until a liberal president comes in and it's the same thing with NATO, by the way. You look at NATO and how the United States was treated with NATO, especially 2022 when we had to send all that money over. They would have meetings, NATO would, in like Germany and in these European countries, and Biden he's just the money bitch. That's what he is. He's the money bitch. Whatever the money is, he'll send it. He doesn't care about the United States. It's almost like these European countries make us feel bad because we're number one in everything. We're number one in GDP. We're the most powerful country in the world. Yes, obviously there's problems with the United States, but if we're measuring it up in terms of NATO influence, it's not even close. And there's legit no argument for NATO, this alliance, existing in 2025. This is an alliance that was created specifically around the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union does not exist anymore. This was an alliance created before we had significant power back in 49, mainly because we didn't lose a ton of soldiers in World War II, and Russia and Germany were decimated. But we're at a different economic stage at this point than we were in 49 and 50 when this was created. NATO, I'm talking about. So it's like it is an outdated military agreement. NATO is. So whether or not that needs to be renegotiated or what, I don't know. But when it comes to something like Panama and the situation, I think it's probably going to have to be a blockade if Trump really wants to go there. My guess is Panama is hoping Trump is just bluffing. And as long as they get angry enough and they get enough people to disavow, a potential military action by the United States, a military exercise, they hope the United States will just give up on it. That would be my guess, because Panama obviously wants to keep full control. I mean, for Panama, what might end up happening is they might have to sever ties with China to be able to keep their canal. If the United States goes into a negotiation with them and says, okay, we're not going to take your canal and take all your toll money, you need to sever all your ties with China, and that'll be good enough. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'm just not sure exactly what Trump wants. If he wants the canal back, it is going to have to probably be some type of, military strategic expedition is what it's labeled. It's not an invasion. He might, but I'm guessing it'd be a blockade. That's what I'm guessing it would be. So, listen, it could happen. We don't know really how Trump's going to treat this. I think it's a lot more aggressive of a situation than Greenland. Greenland, to me, is more negotiations based. Panama might also be negotiations based. I'm guessing that'll probably be how it ends if Trump really wants to go through with this. I'm sure Panama is hoping, you make up you make up as much noise as possible. You get a bunch of countries to say no, don't do it, and then Trump will not do it. But we don't know exactly what Trump's going to do at this point when it comes to the canal. But Americans have to understand the canal was ownership of the United States. The United States originally started building the canal back in the very early 1900s, 1904, before the Titanic sank. I mean, that's how far back this goes. The United States adjusted for inflation, spent billions of dollars on the canal, and controlled the canal, and then partially controlled the canal all the way up until 99. So 1904 to 99. And now we're going to deal with all these Chinese influence within the canal. So people have to understand that there is legit grievance here from Trump and from people that want this canal back in U.S. hands. So we'll have to see what ends up happening. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Links to that's always in the description.